So this is another day. So I'm trying to do another starting a new metrics for the completion of the human condition and the contribution for the human condition in to the public, and this is under Creative Commons, so it is open for whoever would like to come by this conversation and dive into the nature of let us say it, the psycho-emotion, because I'm interested in particularly negative emotions and its impact on the neurodevelopmental, and from uh, the perspective of neurobiology of whatever the emotion is. And I stated before, aggression, and by the way, our current metrics is included as well, as we talk about the negative emotions and its impact on the neurobiology and the neuroendocrine. And this is your diencephalon. This is a deep microchip in your brain that has been hacked years and years without even or your permission. And we call it human behavior, we call it lack of skills, inability to get along, labels. So thousands and million zillions of labels has been put onto us to put the limitations of the human capacity to think, to live, and have respect and integrity and dignity, no matter who they are, no matter whatever your background is, because God said you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we are created in God's image. So when you are feeding yourself with this truth, it is a truth, it never change. He was, is, and will, and his word is never changing, or brought us to the state of frustration that we are other than his own creation, his own. He made us his own. That is huge, and that brings a huge responsibility. But how many are brought to life? How many are being taught from early age this truth? So we are endeavoring into a journey in life. However, we came to life without our permission. God meant to you to be. However, your journey is taking every human on earth. Let me see what is the census of the population in the world right now. Is it 9 billion or less than still? Let us see. Uh, the census, according to um, probably 2024. Wow. We are almost there. So we are, I'm going to put this in the chat, or yeah. We are 8.9 billion. So the global population, that is just we are 8 point. at the beginning of 2025, 8.9. It was expected that we will be 9 billion by 2030, and lots of expectation to 2030 when it comes. It's like a huge change in how things work, and I feel like we started to see it, we started to feel it, and we understand everybody was in their comfort zone, first of all, taken out of their comfort zone to think differently or to try to make meaning, because we are creatures or living creatures of meaning making or making a sense of the world around us. So we would like to understand how things work and how they don't work, or where we are in this spectrum. However, our metrics start, I think like nobody is like aggression. Nobody uh, has escaped it or haven't lived it. It is pain. And whatever is psychological, emotional, social, name it, pain is a physiological pain. So your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain make this as an adaptive emotion for survival, even it is a negative experience. So whoever is saying, say positive, think positive, eh, yes, we have to think positive and say things positive, but however, we have to understand what is really going on within us first, and then what is going on in the environment, so we understand how to survive. That is the surviving. I said survival mechanism is not living, or adapt another coping mechanism as innate or primary creatures. So this is another innate response from your pathophysiology or neurobiology. So it is equipped in you from and our ancestors to keep us alive, to chase the tiger, but you're not chasing the tiger. However, the whatever is being built upon events, developmental, it changes in everything or dynamic around you. It anticipate in part of bringing back these innate behaviors or these innate responses into your from your neurobiology uh, to understand, to know exactly where you are at. However, but sometimes when it is combined, like with stress, with sleep deprivation or sleep disturbances, this is another biological functions built upon you. When it is over stimulated, it lead to the adversity of not only your psyche but also into your the changes into your neurobiology and your allostatic load and excitotoxicity ratios. That's the main neurotransmitters in this game, or neurotransmitters are this game in this game are cortisol, glutamate, histamine, norepinephrine. But however, they have a positive function to keep you alive as in survival and be on task, complete the task and move on and then relax, so you can take this biological mechanisms built within you without even forcing it to work harder. However, what we said, the input from the environment from the current ages is putting more load onto your biological systems. So we have to understand that this is this is the fact. A cross culture. I'm using a lot of fillers today, but however, I'm trying to to connect pieces together, to make it as simple as to the layperson, to the person that would like to have like a family conversation. What does it mean healthy family, healthy individual, healthy relationships? So what interfere with it? A healthy lifestyle, a healthy thinking, a healthy communication. It goes on and on and on and on. Not only what you eat or what you drink, it is more complex than that. It is the process of genotype phenotype, or the chicken and egg dilemma, that it is puzzling all scientists and practitioners for decades to try to solve it and find solutions through like biomedics, or biomedical models, or psychological models, or environmental models. So we have lots of models, or engineering models. So they are trying to find solutions in everyone in their own point of expertise and knowledge, in anticipation to the welfare of humanity. However, I would like to build the matrix of pain. What does it mean by pain? And no one is immune from it as aggression. So I'm focusing on these things, that what makes it truly the human experience. When I understand the person that used the violence and aggression, they are exposed from early age to overcome, to assimilate something out of this into a negative lens, to put their pain out onto others. That is a product. And some use the same negative experiences to do something good, because they don't want experience this anymore, or they don't want anybody to be exposed to this anymore. And they are putting themselves at the front line, just to know that I am here to reverse what has been done. So we have two sides of the equation. So and both are perceived experiences brought different outcomes. So what am I saying here? Let us see the another matrix of pain, or the building on another matrix under a pain as an adaptive emotion. Pain as an adaptive emotion. It is not pain out of like an injury or a wound, or after surgery, or interference within the like causing pain for example, as in say in like life hazard or things like that. We see it in mostly like people working in construction, so they are highly exposed for injury. People are working under severe weather conditions. They are at high risk of injury. People are working as a front line in like they are a high risk of injury, and this causing pain. But however, what happened the aftermath, not only the healing of the wound, it is the traumatic event, or the severity of the event, that will never leave the thought, the emotion, from coming back and causing the same effect as it is. And that is what we say, reliving the experience. And that is from psychological or the behavior neuroscience, it is reliving the traumatic experience, reliving as if it is happening right now. So your brain or your cell membrane already stored the memory. So when it comes as a thought, as an emotion, as an interaction, even correlated with the place, time, base, uh, and uh, and people. it comes back as if it's happening right now. So your neurobiology is highly equipped to understand the defense mechanism of how pain impact the perceptual experience, and how pain is being taken an outcome of the lived experience. Some take it, as I said, to overcome and reach another milestone in the journey into overcoming and building a good thing out of the, if they give you lemon, make a lemonade. And others, their central nervous system is not fully regulated, that they could keep with this emerging, or what we say, flashbacks at severe experiences like the post-traumatic stress disorders, or severe anxiety disorders, or panic depression, or all of things that like that. So your biology understand the defense mechanism, how to defend you by projecting what it is as pain into the environment, or into the life, or in their your social life, whatever it is. Some cannot cope with that, so they lean into the risky behaviors to numb, to deny, to escape, to cause like distortion or a dissonance in the memory. So I am talking now not only the psychological process or the information process of the negative emotion as an adaptive behavior, or as an adaptive mechanism. I'm talking on the central nervous system level, and the neurobiology and the neuroendocrine, and that is who you truly is wired. That is how you wired. So how you understand and how we are learning. We are not passive recipient. We are interacting with trillions of messaging every single minute, whether it is internal or external. So let me start with starting the first video on pain as an adaptive emotion. I am started to I'm started to try to how to present this, because it's everybody has been touched with it. And if we are not building the capacities from early age, as I stated, from definition of aggression, and it is everywhere in simple micro macro behaviors, and everybody's saying, what you say about micro macro? I said, in your choice of your meal. Are you gonna go for the high sugary meal, or from highly nutritious meal? I say it from how you are gonna connect with others. Are you gonna tumble and numble and all of this, or are you gonna receive with grace and move on? It is accumulate from this tiny 24/7. We are making choices, we are making decisions, even we don't know. You decide this minute, your body's telling you something or giving you signals, no, that the second minute. So you are in a constant state between the mind body. This is a mind body connection, and the regulation of the central nervous system, that is the core of the changing the dynamic, because it's correlated with the stress response and immune response, and your neurofunction and structure, and the electrobiochemistry changes over time. It happens over time. It's not today or yesterday. It happens over time. It takes decades to brew. Yes, anything, it takes decades to brew. So let us dive into this new matrix of pain. And I would like today that you sit with yourself for 5 minutes. How far you allowed pain to take control over your neurobiology or the function of the perceptual experience from focus, attention, observation, and your communication and your self mastery of dealing with pain when it emerges. It is the memory stored in your cell membrane. Whatever events or whatever happen in your day from minute to minute, it can bring this memory back and your body act accordingly. It is a defensive or it is a protective mechanism that uh, reliving the experience, reliving as it's happening right now. It it's that is when we say how can we rewire. We hear this word a lot from neuroscientists and neuropsychologists and those who are working with pain in multiple level with the complexity of trauma. Even it is like I stated, it is a psychological, emotional, social, or physical trauma. So those who are dealing with this level of the human condition, they understand well, and they have to put their boundaries when they are being exposed to a lot of traumatic events, a lot of things that they choose themselves to be on the front line to deal with it. But however, the, they are not like understanding what is the price is going to be paid along the journey from selecting this profession or this pathway or this career or this that. So the awareness is recommending it's bi-directional as a presenter of a service and as an exposed person, exposure, we call it the secondary trauma for some example, or the inferences that boundaries has been crossed and dropped down. So when to know that that is the blueprint that how to keep your boundaries and not being like sharing one event after another with others. How come they are going to take it as a stepping stone to invade your space or boundary crossed, and that can lead to other complexity. We are as humans, we learn as we go, we learn as we go, and the more we know, the more we understand. Okay, I was a partner in this because I gave the opportunity for the boundary to be crossed. So I have to learn how to reset my boundary, and it is a healthy one and not something against humanity or something. But however, we have to shift the healthy culture into understanding what boundary mean, what safety mean, what does it mean, what for you, because it's individualistic based on the perceptual experience. So let us dive deep into the building up the metrics of pain and understand what it means. But I am presenting it from a behavior neuroscience perspective and from the physiological, psychological, and neurodevelopmental stages with other functions that you are really built, already built in you as a human to keep you uh, on a sustained journey of living and not surviving, but however, majority are surviving. We understand that. So let me see. When I thought of being, I said, what can I present today? What I would like to share today? And how can I build on what has been shared in the metrics of aggression and its anatomy and physiology. So again, we are talking about pain, anatomy, and physiology. So everything comes with a price into your neurobiology. So let's dive in. So, for example, what I'd like to say that pain is typically understood as a purely negative experience, something unpleasant to be avoided or relieved. And the word relieved, that what is we say that is the downfall of dysregulated central nervous system to seek anything, especially with neurodevelopmentals, sensory period of neurodevelopmental, to seek anything to relieve this pain. That's when comes the risk behaviors in place, or in the key and lock together. From a behavior neuroscience perspective, being serves as important adaptive function. Uh, being under is named under emotion and health, and they explicitly describe it as an adaptive emotion. Uh, Pain functions as an adaptive emotional signal. What neural and behavioral mechanisms underlie this adaptive role, and how and when dysregulated, pain can become maladaptive. I draw some of the literature that presented pain as an adaptive emotion and what does it mean. So, being an adaptive emotion is the framing or is a framing of pain as a significant, and instead of viewing pain simply as sensory damage or discomfort. It's a framing of the word that it is adaptive emotion. I think it lessens the perceptual understanding about pain when I say pain is an adaptive emotion. So we all humans are emotions. So it is presenting an opportunity for listening the stress response when we say the word pain, or the discomfort of hearing the word pain. They are stated under the category of emotions as an affective motivational state. So I said before that pain can be a drive of overcoming the negative perceptual experience or the incident or the life event into another thing, into alleviating the pain through doing something completely different to bring fulfillment, to bring joy, to bring contentment, to bring hope in the process. Others take it as a motivational to go down into risky behaviors. So it's a double-edged sword. So it's a perceptual. So, as an adaptive emotions broadly are internal state that signal motivational relevant conditions such as threats or opportunity. So, I said it is a double-edged sword, or the two faces of the coin are presented in one thing. So, what the human is gonna, it is based on their age, gender, culture, race, ethnicity, what has been conditioning. If there is any like a power dynamic or something, how it is going to take role. So it's a very complex when we dissect the pain as an emotion. So here double double faces is in here. It is threat or opportunity, and prompt behavior responses to deal with those conditions. Pain and adaptive emotion is a signaling of potential or actual body threats. Like tissue damage for injury. I said there are many occupations that are very high risk for injury, and that is a natural pain as a product for the process of inflammation and the immune system to protect the tissue, to protect it, to heal the damage. So you have to experience pain in a specific time, and then it dissipates based on the severity. It dissipates with intervention, with the right pathway of treatment, with the as well with the collaboration of the person themselves, of perceptual experience as a motivational to heal. So part you are a partner in the process of healing. You are not negative recipient based on your meaning making of the event. So you are making meaning of the event itself, and say for example, say some say this too shall pass. I am an overcomer. I will do better next time, and so on, so on. So they are putting positive messages into their brain. So their brain tells their body, okay, you don't have to stress or create the anxiety response or the sadness or things like that over more. So calm down. So it activates the parasympathetic, this internal dialogue of messaging between the mind and the body. It is activating the more limbic response, or and that is comfort and this ease, and or the parasympathetic response, so that is a calm, that is assurance, that is attention, that is focus. So you are able to make better decisions. So for example, like motivate protective, recuperative behavior, like withdrawing from harm or resting or healing. So it's here your response, your body response. Your body response is a form of understanding or resistance. So your body is ready to get the signal from your brain. Or vice versa, the body is not in a state of calm, or it is acting from a sympathetic response. So the brain is overwhelmed, and I stated before that this state is a metabolic. This is consuming majority of your energy and draining the brain. That is why many people experience fatigue, fog, inability to confusion, because the brain is working 10 times than it is usual, and this taking out from the body and the nutrients from musculoskeletal, leading to this depleted energy, are unable even to do the simple task you are used to do. So understanding the dialogue between the mind and body is so critical, because it all changes into electrobiochemistry. It's all metabolic. It's all changing the pathways of what is activated, what excitatory, inhibitory is right now taking place, or processes of metabolism. So it is tough. Yeah, if we understand this earlier. Pain is not merely a passive feeling, it is an indicator and a motivator of action, linking body integrity, brain processing, and behavior together. Pain is an affective, means it's affective. I said it is the triggering of emotions. Emotions can be negative and positive. So my focus on how to identify the negative emotions and their impact on your metabolic health and in your mind and body connection, and the messaging and the rewiring between them and reframing them into a positive by seeing what actually is taking place in your neurophysiology, and then how this can harm or how can this benefit. And you have been presented with um, enough information to make a sound decision, and you understand that you are a collaborative partner in the process. You are not passive recipient. So it carries motivational weight. We don't ignore it. Pain is just strikes like the thunderstorm. It is sharp like the light. It is sharp like the light from the sky. So it leaves its mark. It leaves its print on the neurophysiology. So do not ignore it, and address it, acknowledge, validate, and understand that you are, it was every single event, you are rewiring the experience into a different level from your neurocircuitry. So dysfunction and pleasantness encourages avoidance of further harm and engagement in healing behaviors. Humans born with congenital insensitivity to pain. This is an innate primary one of the defense or survival mechanism for us from our neurophysiology. To pain, for example, unable to feel pain are at the grave risk of tissue damage, infections, and the premature death. A clear illustration of the adaptive value of pain. From evolutionary and neuroscientific perspective, pain can be understood as mechanism that promotes survival by alerting danger, promoting behavioral withdrawal or healing, and encoding motivational salience of body costs. So, Sriyan said, this is important. So this is important to pay attention to. This is important. So your brain will remember automatically. This is the core of adaptive emotion concept. We learn now adaptive therapy, adaptive yoga, adaptive movement, adaptive. This means rewiring the perceptual experience from the core point of it is taking the negative emotions and try to de-escalate the sympathetic response through this internal dialogue between the mind and the body, and what has been actually taking place right now. How can I focus and pay attention? And then comes the emotion. So here, describe the environment of the brain, like for example, Garrett and Hug, that these are the one of the scientists is in behavioral neuroscience, and that they described the involvement of multiple brain structure in pain, including the somatosensory cortex. And in trauma, somatosensory cortex, that is the core that can modulate or remodulate your diencephalon. If we understand it, that needs a lot of work from early age. The anterior cingulate cortex and the other affected brain systems. For example, they highlighted that the painful heat stimulation activates both somatosensory and midline frontal structures, like the anterior cingulate cortex, suggesting a dissociation between purely sensory aspects and affective motivational aspect of pain. So more recent neuroscience emphasized that pain is processed in distributed network involving nociceptive afferents, spinal and brain stem relays, thalamic nuclei, and insula and anterior cingulate cortex, mid cingulate cortex, and prefrontal regions. That's focus, attention, decision making, and emotional regulation, and the limbic circuits. So these are regions that are integrated within the pain perception. and response as well. These circuits integrate sensory, affective, cognitive, and motivational dimensions of pain. Detection of it. So here, the adaptive framework include detection of threat or damage. Then nociceptors respond to noxious stimuli. This is a chemical, thermal, mechanical. This is all stimuli triggering a response, a metabolic response into your mind and brain and body, and transmit signals to the spinal cord and onward the brain areas. This constitutes the warning aspect of pain. Affective motivational processing structures is like the anterior cingulate cortex, insula, and amygdala process the unpleasantness, urgency, and motivational salience of pain. For example, this hurts, I must act. This doesn't feel good, I must act. This is harmful. This is discomfort. This is whatever you are giving a name. The naming of the emotion by itself is acknowledging and noticing and validation, but not doing something about it. That is when the emotions settle and start to change the allostatic loads. Note that the anterior and anterior cingulate cortex is implicated in emotional pain and the anticipation of pain, the perceptual pain. Behavioral responses generating the brain triggers protective responses such as withdrawal. This is respective, reflexive. For example, you are touching a hot surface. Your arm is already involuntarily move. This is a reflexive movement at the spinal level. Avoidance, rest, healing behaviors, and learning, like avoiding future harm, or from early age the child knows that, oh, if I do this, the harm will be happen again. How to make like intelligent decisions from early age, that needs like attention and focus and training. The motivational component of pain ensures that behavior changes occurs. Learning and memory, past painful experiences can guide future behaviors like avoidance of risk stimulus or improve the protective responses. Another thing, if it is with a genetic predisposition, the increase the hypervigilance and impulsivity can lead to more risky behaviors. Homeostatic and healing functions pain induces behavior that allows recovery. For example, rest, reduce the movement, and protect healing tissues. So the recuperative role of pain, when mentioning how pain motivates wound care. So as we stated, that it is a natural, a primate function when injury occurred. So these inflammatory processes create sense of pain. So that is an innate response for your body pathophysiology mechanisms. So however, the state of stress, sleep, immune function, age, gender, race, all of this, it can the psychological, emotional, and social state, the body mechanism. So how it function from sympathetic or parasympathetic, that can, it has its toll in the motivational process if one care or want healing. So we have to understand that is some already you're gonna notice it, especially after like big surgeries, why some take longer time than others. So there is a trauma trapped in the cellular mechanism. There is a disruption for the allostatic. There is a distortion into the excitatory response and the the chronic stress state of the metabolic system, or the electrobiochemical responses within the body across lifespan. So that it depends on what load are you carrying. It is not it left unaddressed, ignored, unnoticed, and already your cellular mechanism is acting from it as the natural mechanism. This is happening, this is happening. So the cell is confused. It lost its natural function that what is this designed for from the beginning. However, it started to do a role. The cell is not, so there's the compensation mechanism, or um, I am going to take this function right now, and this will be, and this is the confusion of the cell function, and that increases susceptibility of elongation of treatment resistance, or some sort of like the prolonged state of healing or recovery. So it has its toll on the physiological or the natural process of healing, either one healing, or psychological, emotional, or social healing. So this is all from the molecular level. What state your cell is proliferating and functioning right now. We have to understand this. And that is requires from early age how to understand that we are, as humans, we influence each other negatively and positively, but our awareness of what to accept and what to not accept, that is a whole different culture of understanding how our health is correlated with each experience we had on every single day of our life, on the micro and macro level. So pain is a neural mechanism support its behavioral role in enabling an organism to recognize threat, respond appropriately, learn from the experience, and recover. However, the pain now became as a health problem, but it is also adaptive. So, chronic pain, this is when the perceptual experiences or the cellular mechanisms started to act from a state it's not supposed to be. So, let us see here adaptive benefits and illustrative examples. For example, so we have adaptive value of pain can be illustrated. Withdrawal reflex, a simple example, when you touch a hot surface and quickly pull your hand away. This is reflexive behavior, prevents further damage, and it is an immediate behavioral output of nociceptive and affective processing. Learning and avoidance, it is if a specific stimuli, say a plant that stings like thorns, or it has sharp edges, it causes pain, then subsequently you're going to avoid that stimuli. Is an adaptive, reducing the injury risk, being thereby act as a teacher. One, the healing after an injury, pain encourages rest and prevent further movement that might aggravate the tissue. This recuperative component is a major adaptive function. Motivational shift, pain captures attention and motivates the organism to prioritize the threat over other competing goals. For example, continuing play when injury, unlike healthy state, because when there is pain, there is alteration in the nitric oxide, and nitric oxide can cause cartilage or joint damage. So we have to understand that what effort I can press on right now and what's not. So This ensures the harmful situations are addressed promptly, so that we understand the metabolic mechanism of pain. That is essential. It is not, it is normal to a certain degree, but when leads to a tissue damage, that it shouldn't be left unaddressed, and understand the metabolic and the what is actually happening in your neurophysiology, in your musculoskeletal level, what is actually taking place, and how can this start to shift in behavior to heal. Social communication in human and many animals, expressions of pain communicate vulnerability and the need to help, thereby fostering protective behaviors by others and social bonding. That pain is not simply abrasive, but occupies a critical motivational behavior role, enabling adaptive responses to bodily threats. While pain has many adaptive functions, it can also become maladaptive. And when the mechanism that are meant to protect the organism instead contribute to chronic suffering, avoidance, disability, or altered brain structure and function. And here there is the negative effect of pain as a disorder, or pain and its disorders. Pain insensitivity is risky. So who doesn't feel pain, that's not okay. But the broader literature provide a deeper account on how the adaptive system can become maladaptive. For example, chronic pain, we understand the alleviation of chronic pain conditions across lifespan, and particularly females, because they go through lots of physiological changes across the developmental and their social status and things like that, and the changes in their physiology, it occurs a lot. However, their sensitivity to pain is higher. When it changes the allostatic load, it shifts from regular response or adaptive response to an injury or an incident into a state of chronic pain, and that is when it became a disorder. When pain persists beyond the tissue healing, or it's disproportionate to damage, brain networks can reorganize in ways that maintain pain independently of peripheral input. As one reviews states that pain elicits fear and anxiety and promotes escape, avoidance, and adaptive behaviors. When pain persists, motivational priority and attention shifted to pain-related information, such as a shift often results in impaired functionality. Behavioral avoidance and fear avoidance model persist pain can lead to fearful and anticipation of pain, avoidance of movement or activity. So it can affect the quality of life of the person based on their perceptual understanding of pain and experiencing pain. Deconditioning and further disability, clearly maladaptive cascade brain changes. Long-term pain is associated with the changes in brain structure. For example, reduced gray matter in prefrontal cortex and thalamus, and alter the functional connectivity in ineffective and cognitive networks. This undermines adaptive behavior and they may contribute to emotional disorders like depression and anxiety. Because of this inhibition of the dealing with pain, or be proactive in processing the provocation of pain. Accumulated allostatic load, the chronic activation of the pain system and associated stress response can accelerate function decline and reduce resilience. What began as an adaptive response can become a maladaptive one when regulatory mechanisms fail, when pain outlasts its useful function, or when motivational and affective circuitry become dysregulated. Knowing the adaptive roots of pain helps explain why simply blocking pain without addressing the underlying mechanism may not restore the adaptive function. So when you deny, when you ignore, when you shovel it under the rug for your uh, brain, mind, and body connection, it is not okay. It has to be addressed. So we have to understand now how we can bring the human condition into perspective with the lens that we're dealing with the natural accumulation of negative emotions and negative experiences, and that impact on the neurofunction and the structure and the perception of pain, and how it happened, and how it happens. How can we understand this at early age? So we have here like uh, waving it together that a behavior neuroscience view pain from an integrative perspective. Pain as an emotion first. Pain shares many properties with other emotions. It is balanced or unpleasant. It's a negative emotion, involves bodily changes, motivates behavior, and involves evaluation of significance. The function, everything has a function. A brain basis, the brain does not process pain purely as a sensory event, rather affective motivational circuit like insula, anterior cingulate cortex, and prefrontal cortex integrate sensory inputs with significance, anticipate consequences, generate behavioral priorities, and modulate the responses. Behavioral consequences: the experience of pain promotes adaptive behavior, withdrawal, avoidance of harmful stimulation, healing behaviors, attention to damage, learning to avoid the future harm. These behaviors improve survival and protect the body. Adaptive homeostasis: pain helps. Pain helps them maintain bodily integrity by signaling when the body is off homeostatic balance, like injury or threat, compelling behavior that helps restore balance, like healing, rest, or avoidance. Transition to maladaptive: when the pain system remains active beyond the utility or becomes sensitized, the behavioral responses become maladaptive, like excessive avoidance, uh, like phobic, the phobias, how they disability or altered brain circuitry. Clinical implication: recognizing pain's adaptive role, reframe treatment goals, not simply abolishing pain, but restoring adaptive function, appropriate pain signaling, a healthy behavioral response, avoidance of maladaptive legacy. So, framing support is by emphasizing the dual nature of pain as a problem and a protector. So, as I stated, the internal dialogue about the experience or the perceptual experience of pain, it has to acknowledge that, oh, I have a problem, but it is not for me um, to get overwhelmed with it. This internal dialogue and giving this redirection language of healing into signaling into the brain and the body as a protective mechanism, and as a natural way of processing a negative emotion. So what I would like to do then, to be a participant, from a participatory perspective, to collaborate in the process of healing, what actions I want to take. So it's an invitation for action. So, from practical standpoint, understanding pain as an adaptive emotion suggests several implications. Like assessment, clinicians should assess not only the intensity of pain, but we say on the scale of 0 to 10, what is the level of your pain? Yes, and when the person say any number, we have to believe them. That is their experience. That is their individualistic perceptual experience of what they have, their body, they feel their body going on. It can correlate with past other adverse other events, but it's all come into place in this event or in this incident. So we say we have to believe them, and we have to validate their sense of pain or their level of pain. But the behavioral and emotional responses, for example, is a person withdrawing appropriately, learning from the pain, or stuck in fear avoidance. So with this, we say the fear, guilt, and shame, that the conditioning that is innate in our primary system, it increases the sympathetic response automatically. That is a defense mechanism of your neurobiology. It is not being designed for the moment. It is already is built within. But when it is overdue, or it's overdone, it is increasing this state of paralysis, or not only paralysis, it is a disability of action taking. So whatever it is, psychological or physiological or emotional or social, it is actually impacting the sympathetic response. So it's impacting your vagal tone, it's impacting your jugular vein, it's impacting the perceptual experience from prefrontal cortex into even your GI tract, into everything, every single bio system in your body on a metabolic mechanism. So, treatment goals, like rather than only suppressing pain signaling, treatment should aim to restore adaptive behavior of the perceptual experience of pain. So, I don't want, in the neuroscience, we say use it or lose it. That's why we say children are highly intelligent at 6 years old with environmental and lived experiences. The amount of their intelligence dropped drastically after that. And what intervention and what is being has been taking place at the genotype phenotype perspective, the chicken or egg. So it brings everyone on board to understand that the lived experience truly use it or lose it. It can, you are built within specific mechanisms to survive, and problem solving, and think and focus and pay attention and identify danger, threat, or understanding or making meaning or making sense of the world around you. But however, when it is overwhelmed and overstimulated or overused, then the 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 brain lose its capacity of the perceptual experience of pain, which is an adaptive emotion. So adaptive emotion means it doesn't have to take too much time, because you are in every single minute of your life dealing with other scenarios, other schemas, and imagine the schemas that are stored already through how old are you, how far your early childhood was, your adolescent stages, your early adult. All this you are carrying with you. Your cell membrane didn't forget specific events that already in the consolidations processes during his sleep already say, hey, this is important, keep it, keep it, and storing in the compartment that is in your brain and in your cellular mechanisms to be reused and reused over time when the relevance, the familiarity, or the pattern has been emerged over time. Will we understand the human condition? It changes over time. How this it changed over time, and when we understand that, it will bring us to a point that I don't want my child to go through that. I don't want young people to go through that. Um, so you started to form this awareness that this is not a living. That is not a living. That's survival, and it's not healthy. So, for example, adaptive behavior like safe movement, engagement in life, extinction of harmful avoidance, and rewiring the maladaptive circuitry. Prevention of chronicity, that early interventions that address emotional, cognitive, and behavioral responses to pain may prevent the transition from acute adaptive pain to chronic maladaptive pain. And when I say behavior, not only the symptoms that I see, it is the molecular mechanism of your metabolic function. It is, and I'll say once again, I'm gonna forget it. It is your cellular and molecular mechanism on metabolic function. We have to understand behavior from not only the external symptoms or what I see. There are metabolic function, there are on electrobiochemistry exchange and change, and this happened with the triggering of the emotions. So pay attention to your emotions so well and how they are being consumed uh, negatively and positively. So positive brings living into the cellular body. So that is the positive. The negative is leading to the draining of the metabolic function, and that is why we say I understand that more dysregulated central nervous system, brain energy overconsumption over time only by the changing from adaptive mechanism, natural adaptive mechanism, to a male adaptive mechanism. So we have to shift to this language of what do you mean by I have metabolic fatigue or fog or whatever that. What do you mean by it? And how it happens over time and how everybody influence each other. So look at the genotype, phenotype, and the role of the environment. Scientists and practitioners now are started to focus on what is going on in the environment, the external and internal. It's complex. It needs a multidisciplinary approach. It requires the integration of specialities that already like haven't been thought of, or we have a shortage in them. So we have to understand how can we integrate this within the whole person approach to understand this perceived emotions, what we call it, negative emotions. But I love it. This is what 15 years I'm trying to learn and research and understand its impact on everyday life and your how you see life, how you understand life, what healthy means for you, what healthy means for you. And humans are not objects. Humans are not objects. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are made in God's image. That is huge. So education, another thing for prevention, educating patients that pain has an adaptive reason. Warning, healing, learning may reduce the catastrophizing and fear-related responses, because these are like the conditioning thing. Your body needs to protect you, so they are gonna make a giant of the incident, so they increase the level of fear response, and this impacting on your metabolic function. And that's how the fatigue and energy draining take place. And the person say, I even the simple things I used to do, even without thinking, I cannot do anymore. But they don't understand that their consumption of the metabolic function has been exhausted, that their body ran out of resources. So for the researchers, so we're going to understand that assessment, treatment goals, prevention of chronicity, chronic pain conditions, and education and research. So behavioral research allows us to dive deep into this, the complexity of the condition, the complexity of it, and see what from quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods approach. So, research in behavioral neuroscience research should continue to explore how pain systems interact with emotion, cognition, motivation, learning, perception, and how individuals' differences in these systems predispose to maladaptation. So, who is predisposed? And that is the genotype, phenotype, or the chicken or the egg dilemma. The framing of pain as an emotion aligns with the broader models of emotions as functional motivational states rooted in the neural circuitry that guides the behavior toward the survival relevancy. Your brain looking for relevancy. Is it familiar here? Do I know it? Repeat, repeat. So, in this sense, pain is not merely a byproduct of injury, but an evolved mechanism for signaling and promoting behavior. So, that is an emphasis on what an adaptive behavior, an adaptive emotion of pain as an adaptive emotion is. The conceptualization of pain as an adaptive emotion provides a rich framework for understanding the biological, emotional, and behavioral aspects of pain. Pain alerts, motivates, teaches, and protects. At the same time, pain regulation fails. The same system may produce chronic suffering, disability, and brain changes. Recognizing both sides, adaptive and maladaptive of pain, is essential in neuroscience, psychology, and clinical practice. Viewing pain through behavioral neuroscience lens offers a deeper appreciation of its functional role in brain behavior and survival. Uh, so, as I stated before, pain has both a sensory component, nociception, and an emotional motivational component, unpleasant urge to act. The brain circuits they highlight include the somatosensory areas, but importantly also the anterior cingulate cortex, insula, and affective brain regions. So pain is not merely a reflexive withdrawal, but involves higher order processing, evolution of threat, behavior regulation, and learning and motivation. When pain functions adaptively, it alerts the organisms to damage or threat, prompts withdrawal or healing behavior, and may shape future avoidance as a protective learning. So, say protective. I'd like to pain being as an emotional, social, psychological experience. It is correlated, has a high direct correlation with adverse childhood experience, and we build on adverse the severity or the level of adverse childhood experiences. I stated, I repeat and repeat, the body keeps the score. What defense mechanisms so that the body already adapted and act autonomically? And whenever reoccurring of a similar events, so the body understand what reactions it needs to project toward the event or incident. So I'd like to shed the light on this perceived threat, stress, reality, and the role of adverse childhood experiences and the neurodevelopmental changes. The adverse childhood experiences refers to significant stressors or traumatic event in childhood as abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, with witnessing, I said it before, over 70% household dysfunction. It's from simple things, understanding the value of human being. I think it's another perspective I would like to teach from early age, the value of being who you are, the essence of being who you are, and the value of fearfully and wonderfully made, and we are created in God's image. uh, I repeat it again, over 70% household dysfunction, witnessing violence or other forms of adversity. These exposures often evoke a strong stress response, heightened arousal, hypothalamic pituitary axis activation, and autonomic activation. That is fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fleeing, and flop. So I sent it on my Facebook page that this is the physiological, psychological response for your body trying to protect or defend. So here, adverse childhood experiences are associated with later mental health problems, pain syndromes, and altered brain structure and function. I have witnessed in early age, especially the sensitive periods of neurodevelopmental stages, their perceptual experience of pain that drive them to risk behaviors that alter their neurophysiology, and they started to live with a chronic condition, and that an invitation to disability, that invitation to helplessness, powerlessness, and other behaviors of devaluing the self through harmful behaviors. So, if we understand exactly how the evolution of pain and its impact on our neurophysiology and our total health and well-being and quality of life, I think we are going to shift the perception, regardless of the cluster personality disorders, the target triad, all of this. We understand the equation that we are exposed to, either we want or we don't want. Life brings a lot of hardships, challenges, and experiences. Most of the time, we didn't invite into our day, but however, our lack of awareness invited. Our defense mechanisms and conditioning and trauma bonding, attachment, Early childhood trauma, all these are a formula for the abuser to feed on, and that's what they are looking for their victim. So if we are learn from early, if we learn from this early age, and its direct correlation with pain and its progression into chronic state of pain, into altering the allostatic or the homeostatic state. So we are going to understand from early age how to detect. Be your own detective. If you miss, you never late to be missed your opportunity for rewiring and relearning and unlearn uh, de-learn. It means you are erasing the old conditioning and relearn the new perceptual and new invitation into a healthy, and understand what healthy means into your life from your own personal individualistic experience, because it varies from person to person, from group to group, from society, communities, from group dynamic and everything, what healthy means for you. And that's what you stand for, because it's all the equation of your health or quality of life and well-being as well. So we understand that it is a tough with like aggression. I came to a point to say I have to address this. It's another metrics about pain. We have to address this. If we keep ignoring what's actually happened, unless it is deliberate and intentional harm, that is a whole different issue, and that is uh, a human. I consider it a human crime, and it left no trace, because it's social, emotional, and psychological manipulation and abuse, and that has no trace, and the person is perceived as a problem and unstable. So we have to understand this equation that we are presented with. What equation are you dealing with right now? Understand the equation. Be your own detective and mathematician and investigator of how your body react in presence of like events, incidents, people, place, um, time, how your body is, and your body will give you the right signal. So you don't ignore it, acknowledge it. So say that is a protective mechanism. So how can I address it in a healthy way, and how can I know it is healthy? I have to relearn and decode. We call it encode and decode, and it's a life journey. Minimal stressors provoke stronger responses. Threat detection systems become hyper vigilant, and cognitive emotional processing become biased toward the threat. So that danger says, imagine your body will act autonomically from the stress response. And this is not healthy. This is a survival mechanism, but overused, overconsumed, overwhelming the central nervous system to the freeze point. This heightened threat appraisal influences how later events, including bodily sensations, are perceived. Innocuous sensations may be interpreted as the threatening. So, and things like if relevant to past experience is going to trigger the normal autonomic response within the body. The developing brain is highly plastic, but also vulnerable. It is now some of the scientists and the scholar practitioners started to use the word available instead of vulnerable, because vulnerable, it can bring a social stigma. I am vulnerable, so this is an invitation into like being so. They say these started to vulnerable, the word as well, is have a negative perceptual experience, so that trigger the natural autonomic response, stress response, and that is over time not healthy. So they started to use the word available. So available. It's like, like you go to the store, it's now available. The marketing and commercials, now available, means anybody can get it. Imagine that. The same word. I noticed that like the marketing commercials and media are using like users, as a for the media feeds. So, so the humanizing the machine. So available, or the product, humanizing the product. So it's giving it this, I call it the trauma bonding or the attachments. It's bring the neurosignal to the brain that this is important and you have to pay attention to. So it increases this behavior, whether you are a user of a platform, a product, or you are feeding this product. So it's eating in your energy. Imagine that. That is so. That is so critical. Like when we do experimentation of human machine behavior, that is really, we have to understand from functional MRIs what neurocircuits have been highlighted or like sparked, especially the reward system, and then over time its impact on the neuroendocrinology or the neuroendocrine pathways and the metabolic function over time, especially in, that's a complex experiment if it's done. So now availability, so anybody can grab it, whoever, first come first serve. Yeah, I don't know. So that means there is no protection anymore. There is more exposure to of being vulnerable when we say it's available. So how far you are available, your attention, your focus, your emotions, and understand this over time on the changes of your neurocircuitry, your electrobiochemical function, and the pain, the perceptual experience of pain. Understand that. Persistent elevation of stress mediators like cortisol, adrenaline during the sensitive periods can disrupt the normal synaptogenesis, because we say our brain strive on neuroplasticity, so it can compensate, reorganize, collaborate with other regions, alternate. It's a high quantum machine that you are having, and as well, the younger you are, the higher you have brain, the stem cells. They have a lot of stem cells. That is a powerhouse as well. And we have the synaptogenesis, the neurogenesis. It is said that even at the last 3 minutes or 30 seconds of the human life, there is the process of neurogenesis is happening. But however, in sensitive periods, we are highly focusing on the synaptogenesis. The stronger the synaptic connection, the stronger the communication, the stronger of trying to receive new learning experiences and strengthening these synaptic connections and building upon the healthy prefrontal cortex. Till 2630, some it is based on what you have been compromised through this. So the brain has this neuroplasticity and elastic as well, so it can compensate, it can start to develop even till 30 years of age. Pruning, that is like the trimming of the trees. That's why we anything like resemble the brain is like in the trees. And that we are part of the from dust to dust. We are made from dust. So the components of the mineral nutrients of the soil, that is what it connect you with the earth. It connect you with the tree. So as they say, it is our we are made of the same, like the same combustion of mineral nutrients within the soil. From dust to dust, from ashes to ashes, from glory to glory. That is part of the words that we keep repeating. That is, we understand the origination of creation in the book of Genesis. So we are made from dirt. We are made from dirt. So God breathes the life in it. God breathes the life. So the essence of life is breath. The essence of life is the oxygenation of the cell. That's why the better oxygenation of the cell, the better health, the better living in life. Pruning, so for the tree, so the trimming for seasons. So you are in the sensitive, so that use it or lose it. This is important. This is not. It is not used, so it is done, and this is being used to strengthen it. So you have to understand that you are a partner in the awareness of the process, how your brain function is built in the structure way and in the functional way. From behavior neuroscience, we focus a lot on the functional aspect, and that how it's impacted with the structure next. So pruning, myelination, that's important, the conduction, transduction of the electrical signals among the synaptic connections. So myelination and the network maturation. So we have from connectome of the neural networks to the dynome now. So we understand the whole brain mechanism in behavior, the whole brain, the dynome. So that is neuroscience is with the quantum modeling of the brain and the wiring and the firing in specific neurodevelopmental stages and stages of diseases. Even it is really the quantum engineering now is presenting like a real-time imaging for the brain functionality. So, for example, toxic stress, adverse childhood experiences, and developing brain, prolonged activation of the body stress response system can lead to permanent changes in the brain structure and function. And I say it in every video I'm doing, understand the stress response and correlation with pain as well, and the traumatic or unpleasant experiences that everybody may expose to. Research reveals the structure and connectivity changes associated with adverse childhood experiences, reduction in volume of the hippocampus and the learning and memory center, and the prefrontal cortex, alterations in the amygdala, that is the emotional brain response, is structure and connectivity, white matter changes, and altered resting state functional connectivity. In networks such as the default mode network, the salience network, the frontoparietal control network, all of this. And this is in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So if you'd like to go more on the molecular psychiatry, on the molecular physiology in the frontiers of neuroscience, go there and understand exactly how the ACEs, stress, and neurodevelopmental changes occur due to the perceptual experience of pain as well. So one meta-analysis found that the adverse childhood exposure is associated with altered level of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, and that is one essential of your DNA methylation and um, the emotional regulation and the parasympathetic response, your effectiveness in perceiving information and delivering information. That is so important. Your perceptual, neuro proprioception, your connection or your awareness of the environment and everything around you, and yourself, your state from your environment. So you are not hyper vigilant or impulsive, or that is a lot of awareness bring into place, suggesting impaired neural plasticity and neurogenesis. So the brain of a child exposed at high ACEs is often primed for, so that is conditioning, primed for, that is positioning, heightened threat detection, and altered connectivity in emotional regulation, and possibly reduce the capacity for adaptive regulation. So let us see here the association between like the sensation of threat and pain-related circuits. Children with adverse childhood experiences often manifest the heightened sensitivity to threat and stress. That heightened responsiveness may extend to a nociceptive system, that is the pain neural receptors systems. And for example, studies show that ACEs exposure is associated with increased risk of chronic pain, heightened pain intensity, and lower threshold to pain stimuli. So they are not tolerating pain so much. Their body on the autonomic response, and whenever it is perceived pain, it is actually pain. So the brain doesn't know the difference. Youth with higher ACEs scores the lower global brain network efficiency had higher pain intensity and the heat pain sensitivity. The mechanisms may involve a central sensitization. The central nervous system becomes hyper responsive, so pain signals are amplified, and innocuous stimuli may be perceived as painful. In the context of ACEs, brain regions implicated in both pain and emotional processing, like amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and nucleus accumbens. Nucleus accumbens is highly correlated with pain, pleasure pain, and addiction or substance use disorders, are known to be altered. The function of the brain regions such as the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and the nucleus accumbens, which are involved in both central sensitization and affective component of pain, and significantly altered by adverse childhood experiences. So early life threats, stress may set up the neural architecture in a way that heightens pain responsivity. So, alter the threat perception and appraisal of bodily signals in a person. Threat detection and stress appraisal systems are primed toward that is another availability for abuse and pain, heightened perceptual experience of pain, hypervigilance, bodily sensations such as nociceptive input may be more readily interpreted as threat. Pain is in part about signaling threat and motivating protective behavior. A child with early adversity may therefore adopt a threat bias toward the bodily sensations, perceiving them as a more dangerous, more urgent, and requiring a protective response than that might put otherwise to be the case. This amplifies the effective motivational dimension of pain and may drive avoidance behaviors, catastrophizing, or maladaptive responses. They would like to numb that sense of pain. So altered learning, memory, and behavioral responses. Pain also involves learning past painful experiences, shape avoidance, protective behaviors, and expectations, so that they expect pain in every experience. So there is a constant invitation for overstimulation of the perceptual pain experience or experiencing of pain, even it doesn't happen, but the body is in high alert. Early adversity often disrupt normal learning and regulation circuits in the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and anterior cingulate cortex. So these disruptions may impair appropriate recovery from injury, maladaptive behavior responses like avoidance, diminished engagement, and prolonged pain states. For example, behavioral avoidance due to heightened threat perception may prevent healing activity, leading to chronicity. So we leading from like a prolonged state of perceptual experience of pain, of heightened threat, it lead to the state of chronic pain. Another pathway is the interaction of early stress with the immune inflammatory system. Chronic early stress is associated with low-grade inflammation. And as stated before, low-grade inflammation is under-researched because it takes long time for molecular compromisation, vascular injury, the rupture of endothelial cells, and increased susceptibility for hypertension, cardiovascular, stroke, depression, anxiety, and name it. Because of this low-grade inflammation is highly dangerous because it takes over time, and the changes over time. But if early detection occurred, it may prevent many and understanding the complexity and the nature of the mechanisms is not only what you eat, what you drink. It's including sleep, stress, perceived threat, perceived reality, pain, and all of that. So it takes a village. It takes a village to bring health into a balanced state from early age. Bribing of the microglia in the brain and increase their activity will later insults. Research indicates that microglia activation and inflammation may contribute to altered pain processing and chronic pain development. Early ACEs may prime the brain and body to that later nociceptive input generates exaggerated pain response or fails to settle into adaptive resolution. And I'd like just to navigate as well low-grade inflammation into pain response from on the bone marrow from the T cells because it is in your spine. The B cells, the T cell later after year 16 is into your thymus. So that is especially B cell. And the immune response and genetic predisposition, especially for chronic illness. That is a new endeavor as well. I learned about in my undergrad and my master, but however, I would like to connect the pieces together. I would like to understand the narrative of the disease, the overtime, the changes occur over time on the lived experience. So we can map some of the brain-based changes in the ACEs to the pain emotion behavior system, like hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. Adverse childhood experiences are associated with reduced volume in the hippocampus and frontal cortical structures. The prefrontal cortex, especially the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, is critical for emotions and start with their the visual neurochiasmatic nuclei. So this all visual. So your visual is like 80% of triggering emotions. Is critical for emotion regulation, cognitive control of pain, appraisal of threat, and attenuation of pain responses. In the prefrontal cortex, regulation is compromised. The affective motivational component of pain, perception of threat, decision to act may become dysregulated. So, emphasizing the role of higher order brain regions in emotion and health. So, we have to understand that the human brain has been compromised in the perceptual experience. The amygdala is central to threat detection and emotional salience. Studies show that adverse childhood experiences lead to altered amygdala structure, connectivity, and activation. In pain research, the amygdala is involved in emotional affective pain, fear of pain, anticipation of pain, or avoidance of pain. Early adversity may therefore increase amygdala sensitivity to nociceptive signaling, threatening them or treating them as a threat response, enhancing pain intensity and persistent. Anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, these areas are implicated in the affective dimension of pain. For example, the unpleasantness, motivational urge. Note that the activation of anterior cingulate cortex correlates with emotional aspects of pain. More than purely sensory aspects, research shows that early adversity can modify connectivity and the efficiency of network involving the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula. For example, functional connectivity, reductions in default mood and salience networks. And in behavioral neuroscience, we focus more onto the functional connectivity, increase and decrease. So, or remodulation. When anterior cingulate cortex insula networks are altered, the pain regulation, the top-down, that is the cognitive, the neurocognitive processing, top-down modulation can be compromised. White matter and network efficiency. One study found that youth with adverse childhood experiences and lower global brain efficiency as a measure of network connectivity had a higher pain sensitivity and intensity. This suggests that the brain's capacity to integrate information across networks, including pain, emotion, and cognition, may influence the risk of pain sensitization. Inflammation, microglia, and neural plasticity. Early stress can prime immune responses and microglia activation, which then influences neural plasticity, synapse formation, and resilience. This priming may lead to exaggerated response to later injury or pain stimuli. And over time, it leads to vascular energy. and impede return to homeostasis, and connection with chronic pain. So early adversity or adverse childhood exposure lead to frequent activation of stress system, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and autonomic response, elevated cortisol and adrenergic tone, sensitive neurodevelopmental period, neurodevelopmental embedding in the structure and functional changes, for example, reduced hippocampal and prefrontal cortex volume, altered amygdala connectivity, decreased network efficiency, leads to a higher baseline threat sensitivity, compromised top-down regulation, and leading to altered network integration. Perception of threat and heightened stress reactivity, especially in sensitive neurodevelopmental stages in child and adolescent develops bias toward threat detection, leading to hypervigilance, sensitized stress response, leading to bodily sensations, for example, minor nociceptive signaling, and may be interpreted as a threat or danger. Pain system modulation, because pain is an adaptive emotion signaling bodily threats. The heightened threat system and altered neural regulation, leading to the nociceptive signaling may be amplified, lower threshold, and higher intensity. That's why we say on the scale of 0 to 10, how you measure your pain. So that is, it's the perceptual over the change over time, that there is intolerance to even the small signal of perceptual pain. The affective motivational component, unpleasantness, urge to withdraw, catastrophic interpretation may be enhanced. So leading into the negative connotation of pain or the perceptual expansion, the maladaptive behavior of the perceptual pain. So behavioral responses like avoidance, withdrawal, hyperattention to pain may be maladaptive. Recovery and learning may be impaired due to the disruption of the hippocampal and the prefrontal cortex circuits. Neuroimmune priming may impair resolution and promote central sensitization. We have the microglia activation and the inflammatory response. Maladaptive chronic pain state, over time, the pain system may become self-sustained. So this is the current equation, and this is how the molecular or the cellular mechanism are acting now from self-sustaining perceptual pain experience. Even minor stimuli evoke disproportionate responses. Behavioral avoidance reduces function. Brain circuits remodel, for example, increase the connectivity in pain and emotion circuits, reduce in pain modulation circuits, leading to chronic pain. Empirical studies, that is observational, that is in the field studies, confirm that adverse childhood experiences increase risk for chronic pain and correlate with altered brain efficiency, especially with youth. With the youth studies, or the studies are done in the sensitive neurodevelopmental stages like adolescence. Feedback loop and comorbidity, chronic pain further stresses the system, sleep disruption, mood disturbances, functional impairment, amplifying threat perception and dysregulation, creating a self-reinforcing loop. Early adversity may also predispose to depression, anxiety, which in turn intensify pain perception and catastrophizing incidents. So that is the the heightened autonomic limbic response. It is a fight, fight, freeze, feed, fawn, and flop. Is survival is not healthy. I stated every single day, what systems are you operating from what already have your historical cellular mechanism and metabolic function and your current environment input. What is the bidirectional relationship in that equation? From a behavioral neuroscience perspective, recognizing pain as an adaptive emotion helps us to see that early adversity does not merely increase pain, but shifts the whole motivational, emotional framework around bodily threat and behavior. So understand that whatever, especially with higher ACEs. And by the way, your resiliency has a genetic predisposition as well, and your DNA. Look back to the ancestral neurobiology. So, if you have this resiliency, understand that there is a genetic predisposition that in your neurobiology that it is already equipped within you and through your ancestral lineage. So it's so interesting how to understand that, and that's why some of the indigenous, like the tribal therapeutic approaches now is gonna what ancestral foods, what ancestral rituals, what ancestral spirituals, or things like that, so we can integrate it with the biopsychosocial model and the biomedical model for better outcomes for the process of healing, for especially for that severe traumatic experiences correlated with morbidities and comorbidities, with chronic conditions, because it is mostly entrapped in your cellular mechanism, altering your metabolic function. So it is so interesting to know this point toward the global psychology and cross culture, and from the whole person approach, or the holistic systematic approach of health and disease. It's so interesting, but it requires a lot of efforts of awareness, increasing awareness, and so educational platforms to raise this awareness and know who you are. Know thyself. Know thyself. Prevention and early intervention, identify children with multiple ACEs, and providing buffers like stable caregiving, stress regulation training, we say stress reduction. And hopefully, so by the way, pain can be after done one with my school, I can choose pain as my pathway, or stress, weight loss. I don't know if we understand the cellular mechanism and all the component from human ecological systems, understanding of the human condition, we may understand what we need to address first, that activating these molecular zombies. These molecular zombies, I call molecular zombies, they do change your perceptual life. They do change your infrastructure, the physiological and the neurobiological infrastructure. They do alter many beautiful lives. When I witness all this, when I read in the news, when I see like the Brain and Life magazine with these it's we haven't seen this earlier. or maybe it wasn't, we weren't exposed to, we weren't aware to. We are thinking that there is more awareness now to understand how um, the experience, the lived experience, alter the brain, mind, and body drastically, and how we understand that science can be used for good and the other way as well. So we have to understand what purpose, what mission are you standing for, to understand the core component of the brain, mind, and body connection, and the essence on the core of the metabolic function from neuroendocrinology and neurobiology on your biosystems, health span, quality of life, and well-being. To understand this mechanism before the rapture occur. When I say the rapture, mostly they say the mental. No, you are touching in tiny portion of you are fearfully and wonderfully made. We have to go into this matrices to understand exactly what is in play, what the master players, who are the master players, or what are the master players, and the main players, the sub players, and who we can have target first and focus on and present the intervention so we can get the most effective and efficient outcomes from in the process of healing. So prevention, and as I say, so you have to understand that to protect the neurodevelopmental of threat pain regulation circuits, assessment in chronic pain, clinician training pain should assess for ACEs history, threat appraisal patterns, stress reactivity, behavioral responses like avoidance, catastrophizing, not only injury, organic pathologies. So it's not only because all this make the rupture on a vascular, on the molecular cellular level. Treatment approaches should aim not only to reduce pain intensity, but to restore adaptive threat to pain, and threat pain regulation systems. So bring the natural function of pain. It's an adaptive emotion. Emotions. We have to understand. Feeling comes and go, but emotion stays with you. Stays with you. So don't confuse feeling with emotions. Feelings are deceptive. So understand that. So cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, reinterpretation of bodily signals, so connect to the mind and body, and perhaps interventions that targeting neuroplasticity, like neurofeedback and exercise. Neural targeted interventions, giving the brain changes, reduce the network efficiency, alter the connectivity. Novel treatment might aim to enhance connectivity regulation. For example, non-invasive brain stimulation and network training, although these remain experimental. So we see this virtual reality and TMS modulation and a lot of brain health centers and institutions are working on connecting the human machine experience and how its impact on the neurofunction and the structure and all the homeostasis, because we have to understand that there is no duality. The brain is acting a certain way and the body, no, there is a crosstalk from molecular and cellular mechanism. We have to understand that on the deeper level. So research directions, more longitudinal work is needed to chart the ACEs, network changes, pain phenotype. This is the equation of genotype, phenotype, the chicken and egg dilemma, unfold the overdevelopment to test mediators or moderators like resilience factors, network efficiency, threat bias, and the intervention impacts. Early adverse childhood experiences may prime the brain stress threat and regulatory systems, leading to altered neurodevelopmental trajectories. This creates a brain environment in which the adaptive emotion of pain, designed to signal bodily threat and mobilize protective behaviors, becomes biased, amplified, and dysregulated. And this happens via structure and function brain changes in the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, amygdala, insula, anterior cingulate cortex, network connectivity via heightened perceived threat to bodily signaling. Via sensitization of nociceptive and central brain circuits, and via impaired behavioral learning responses, integrating the behavioral neuroscience framing from this empirical neuroscience of ACEs enriches our understanding of how early life adversity gets under the skin into the brain and predisposes to maladaptive pain states. So another correlation is sleep and immune regulation. So normally pain, like there is pain specialty, sleep specialty, and immune specialty. So three specialties. So you can see a specialist in pain, in sleep, in immunology. So the immunologist. However, they are all integrated in the biological clock or the molecular mechanism. So I think these are so for pain specialists, sleep specialists, and immunologists and endocrinologists, I think it is the time to make one clinic for those. Because we're going to understand the molecular mechanism of the metabolic function and cellular mechanism more deeper, and bring insights to cardiologists, gastroenterologists, who else? Neurologists. we are gonna bring all the, because we're going deep into the synaptogenesis, into the molecular mechanism of the metabolic function and how it alters over time the cellular mechanism and the biosystem and the brain mind body connection. So I think this is time to make one clinic for this specialty right now. We would like to head into personalized treatment or the whole person approach, but it requires how can we perceive health and disease from a cellular mechanism, and early detection. There are specific populations that are higher proportion for specific diseases than others. And we have to pay attention to the genetic resiliency and genetic availability as well. The genotype-phenotype equation. So restructuring how we see human condition is at the forefront to break through into science. So from behavioral neuroscience and the physiology perspective, they are deeply intertwined. So pain in the perception and action. Pain in the perception and action. This is in sleep, in regulation and behavior. And they are an integral brain-body, I say brain-mind-body phenomenon. And that is the whole lab needs to be established, the brain-mind-body lab. I don't know. I have lots of dreams that I know I hear. The brain, mind, body, lab. So that is into precision. It lies into precision. So from the physiological perspective, we have the immune and lymphatic systems, lymphatic system and immunity, and the nervous system in tandem, thereby laying the ground of multi-system integration. So I'm going to say multi-system. So we are in this systematic approach. When we hear this word or systematic approach, everybody goes into, for example, the government. A systemic approach, that integration exactly what the combination needs to be in place to understand the metabolic function and the molecular mechanism. So bring them together. And this interaction with the environment, that was starting from you as an individual, from family to school to friend. I ask, yeah, okay, and go. This is the human ecological model. And on this, these molecular mechanisms are being in a constant change, for good and bad. So name it. So pain processing is modulated by sleep and immune function. Sleep influences immune function and pain sensitivity via neuroendocrine and neural pathways. And that's what I asked like for years. I want to work from a neuroendocrine approach. Yeah. So I pray for that. So I don't know what's next, but that's what my prayer is. I want to work. I am focused for like years and years on negative emotions, and once I have it in my undergrad and grad school, I pick up the pieces, and I say, because we say the word, but we don't understand its impact and influence in your whole life trajectory. That is not an easy understanding or processing. That is the core of the value of human life. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are created in God's image. And when somebody is understanding this value and giving themselves the right to stay aware and healthy, and some not, so that is a question I have to present. That is, I have to take a stand. Everybody has the right to understand. Everybody has a right to understand their value in the eyes of God, not in the eyes of who of the have and have nots, or who is allowed and who's not. This is God creation within you. He created something and say, go explore, go in your quest of journey, ask questions, explore, experience with the understanding how fearfully and wonderfully made. And God has presented us with humongous complexity around us that we say it's only you can do this. We are in the process of knowing, like teeny tiny, I stated before, like the tip of the finger of the knowledge that God has for all the world. So immune activation influences both sleep and pain perception and regulation through cytokines, neural, and imagine that cytokines, when with the injury, that is the inflammatory process, that is for healing. The pain is for as an adaptive emotion. But if it lasts and things like what's going on, you have to understand that there are other mechanisms driving the healing process. So you have to identify what are these mechanisms. Neural and endocrine mediators, disruptors in any of these three domains: pain, sleep, immunity, can lead to maladaptive feedback loop and chronic conditions. And I don't want to say just we're going to correlate. I'm going to correlate other things that we as a human condition experience, but however, how your perception of a pain can alter a lot of systems in your body. So pain is described not only as a sensory modality in nociception, but as a behavioral motivational state. It serves to indicate tissue damage, threat, engages neural circuits for withdrawal learning and protection. From a physiological perspective, pain involves in prefrontal nociceptors, spinal transmission, thalamic relays, and cortical processing, somatosensory cortex, insula, anterior cingulate, and along with medullary descending circuits, brain and spinal and affective motivational circuits. For sleep, the biological rhythm, sleep and dreaming, dreaming another state of creativity and neurogenesis, where they highlight the brain's regulation of sleep via homeostatic and the circadian processes, the brainstem and hypothalamic sleep awakening circuits, and the behavioral and functional consequences of sleep. Sleep is not just a restful inactivity. It is a regulated brain state with profound physiological consequences, neural plasticity, metabolic clearance, and hormonal changes. And I said it before, sleep, that is your brain working as a vacuum. It's cleaning all the garbage and unwanted things and reorganizing and consolidating memories. So for the immune system, the regulation of the innate and adaptive immune response, the cytokines, lymphocytes, and the immune surveillance are introduced. Importantly, that is during sleep. Importantly, for our integration, immune response are influenced by and influence the nervous system and endocrine system. There is a strong evidence that sleep plays a key role in immune regulation. For example, reviews states that sleep and immunity are bidirectionally linked. Immune system activation alters sleeps, and sleep in turn affects the innate and adaptive arm of our body's defense system. The defense mechanisms include during sleep, especially slow wave sleep, اللي هي non-REM sleep, اللي هي non-rapid eye movement. Stages like we have stages 1 and 2 and 3. 4 is the REM sleep, the rapid eye movement, and each stage takes 90 minutes. Is supposed to be means an hour and a half. Redistribution of immunocompetent cells from blood to lymphoid tissue. Your lymphatic system is the flushing system, the drainage of toxins. If there is lack of sleep or sleep deprivation or sleep disturbances, anxiety or heightened stress that make the sluggish lymphatic tone, that is leading to stagnation and increased inflammation and the cycle, the vicious loop. Supporting antigens processing and immune training. Sleep deprivation or disturbances can shift the immune profile toward the pro-inflammatory states, elevated interleukin-6, these are master players, interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. And these are like the basic of the biomarkers of elevated hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular, neurodegenerative. So you're going to see these are like the master biomarkers are indicated, and suppress the antiviral responses like interferon pathways. The sympathetic nervous system and HB axis, or hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, actively during sleep loss contribute to immune dysregulation, increase the neuroepinephrine epinephrine stimulating leukocytes, adrenergic receptors, activating NFKB inflammatory programs. From the behavioral neuroscience lens, the brain regulation of sleep in hypothalamic ventromedial pre-optic nucleus visual, so ascending arousal systems may interface with immune signaling through cytokine mediated pathways. So maybe relevant to mapping how sleep participates in internal regulation, sleep pain, how it goes. Sleep disruption importantly influence pain sensitivity and pain regulation. How? A study showed acute sleep deprivation reduced pain threshold, lower temperature needed to elicit pain, and amplifies somatosensory cortical activity while planting higher order medullary region, stratum, and insula. A review article emphasized the close link between sleep and pain. Poor sleep increases nociceptor sensitivity, intensifies pain perception, and is present in many chronic pain populations. From behavioral neuroscience standpoint, the circuits of pain processing overlap with sleep regulatory circuits, in that both rely on common neuromodulators, adenosine, that is after that melatonin, orexin, and hypocertain neuroadrenaline, and the brainstem hypothalamic networks. As the sleep declines, pain modulatory capacity descending inhibition, attentional modulation may be impaired. So for immune system activation and pain, immune system activation significantly affect pain processing and the chronic pain risk through neuroimmune interactions. A review on neuroimmune interactions in pain states reported that elevated and prolonged pro-inflammatory signaling in the central nervous system is argued to play a role in chronic pain states. Cytokines, microglia activation, and the peripheral immune signaling can sensitize nociceptive pathways, both peripheral and central. Increasing pain responses or lowering threshold, for example, immune activation during infection often causes hyperglycia or sickness behavior. Immune dysfunction or chronic inflammation can escalate pain vulnerability. The immune brain pain axis is aligned with behavioral neuroscience principles, neuroimmune interplay, sensitization, behavioral modification. Immune activation alters sleep, increase in non-REM sleep or non-rapid eye movement sleep during mild infection, but disrupted architecture with severe inflammation. Moreover, chronic sleep disturbances can lead to immune dysregulation, pro-inflammatory state, reduced immunocompetence, creating a vicious cycle. That's when we say the weakened immune system, infectious diseases, slow healing, and the vicious cycle and the rupture of the vascular, or causing the vascular energy and the rupture of the endothelial cells, and leading to the implications of the vascular disorders. So the tridirectional interplay, we have sleep, immunity, and pain. That is the triangulation, and triangulation is so essential in research because we understand that nothing happens solo. Something is driving what drives the mechanisms right now. So we have to understand that. So sleep loss or poor sleep increase the sympathetic hypothalamic pituitary axis activity, immune dysregulation, elevated pro-inflammatory cytokines, reduce the antiviral responses, increase the pain sensitivity through sensitized nociceptors, central sensitization. Pain may further disrupt sleep. Pain interrupts sleep architecture, therefore immune dysregulation. So it's all the triangulation of the pain, sleep, and immune response. We have to understand that the metabolic function and the metabolic or the cellular mechanism of the pain and sleep and the immune triangulation. So immune activation, inflammation, like infection, injury, chronic low-grade inflammation. I said chronic low-grade inflammation. It is it is under studied, and what drivers, because it is important if we try to understand or from preventive approach, from the escalation, from the genetic predisposition, low-grade inflammation biomarkers has to be the at the front line of screening. Release the cytokines like interleukin and the family of cytokines. Interleukin and interleukin family is correlated with specific groups of diseases predisposition aligned with the phenotype and the genetic predisposition. So interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha directly sensitizes nociceptors pathways, pain, and alters sleep architecture, increase the non-REM sleep initially, but then fragmented sleep. Pain and impaired sleep both feedback to immune dysregulation. So if you understand that my immune system is overreactive or hyperreactive or hyperactive, so you have to understand what drives this. So the triangulation of pain, sleep, and immune response are correlated. Pain, especially chronic, leads to sleep disturbances, pain awakening. So we can see this formula in sleep apnea. It increases the pro-inflammatory cytokines, increasing the lipopolysaccharides mechanisms, increase the weight or overweight, and disruptions in sleep circuits. So that increase the pro-inflammatory with obesity and overweight as well. Another mechanisms drives the driven by the perceptual experience of pain that is unresolved for decades. Reduce the deep sleep. So sleep disturbances, deep sleep, that is the REM sleep, the rapid eye movement, this has to happen. This is when the consolidation or the true healing occur. We call it the REM sleep is the restoration stage of the homeostasis. Are we aware of this, the restorative stage of homeostasis from early age? So we can prevent a lot of global burden diseases that the whole world now puzzled by the overwhelmed state of chronic illness, especially in female. Sleep disturbances worsen immune dysregulation. Immune dysregulation further the sensitized pain pathways, leading to chronic pain, conditions. So in behavioral neuroscience, we say that such a loop reflects the brain's failure to maintain homeostasis. That is overwhelming. And I said, the more negative metabolic function are taking place is taking over from your musculoskeletal and biosystem energies. So your brain is a selfish, the most expensive organ and the most selfish organ. It wanna drive its energy. It doesn't care about anything else. So that is, we'll say, the osteoporosis and the chronic fatigue syndromes and all these issues that first understand how your brain metabolic function working that drives this severe condition of fatigue, that you are even not able to do the simple tasks that you used to do, because your brain is eating the consumption and the storage, a reservoir of your body biochemical or electrobiochemical or metabolic function. So it's, oh, we have to understand that. That's why we say uh, it's, um, it's not brain health is, it has to be number one understanding from metabolic function. So that is my statement, that is my experience, that it's for 33 years living with working, learning, cross culture, diverse, name it, and then starting my healing journey uh, 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago. So, and then I came to, I have to bring this into my education, and I have to be in more deeper learning of the natural processes of the metabolic function of the role of emotions on the molecular level. And I pressed on we have the universal, the smile, that, but I was driven because of that, the impact on health span and quality of life and well-being is drastically have been, and real evidence in how human condition can evolve in a positive and negative way. So I pressed on more negative emotions like aggression, stress, pain, anger, name it, because diabetes direct correlation with anger. So I said, oh my goodness, one emotion, just the human think that it is the pathway of living that lead to chronic conditions this way, that the person is sometimes leading to self-harm, suicidal, harming others, and into violence, and into all this trajectory that we call it, we bring it into social justice as their responsibility to solve. But I'm sorry, it's not the responsibility of criminal justice or social justice. It's an individualistic awareness issue, and it is the shifting of culture health, and we understand how humans are made and how metabolic function on the molecular level drives health and disease. So we have to shift our thinking in health and disease mechanisms. So, mechanistically, the descending pain modulation systems, preaqueductal gray, and I stated it before, the Russell ventromedial medulla, may be weakened by sleep immune disruption, intensifying pain from a physiological immune and lymphatic system fail to operate operationally. That is, we call it the lymphocytes trafficking, and cytokine and regulation, inflammatory balance, and another disturbed sleep and pain condition. So we have to understand the correlation between the lymphatic and the immune system at the same time, in correlation with the sleep and the pain regulation. So understanding the interplay among sleep, immune function, and pain has important clinical and theoretical implications. Prevention and early intervention, ensuring adequate sleep hygiene, may protect immune function and reduce pain sensitivity. Sleep is not just rest, it's an active regulation of body and brain systems. Chronic pain treatment in individuals with chronic pain, addressing sleep disturbances and immune dysregulation may mitigate pain chronification. For example, cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia and CBTI. And I did this in the secondary immunology semester, may reduce pain intensity and improve immune markers. Immune inflammation based approaches in pain management, considering immune status, low grade inflammation, cytokines profile, may help tailor intervention, anti-inflammatory lifestyle interventions from exercise, diet, sleep. We call it a emotional declutter. How to do this emotional declutter, mental emotional declutter, may thus indirectly reduce pain, the biopsychosocial model, and that is a core of my schooling, the biopsychosocial model, motivational interviewing as well. The integrative model aligns with behavioral neuroscience. Pain is not only a sensory event, but involves affective, cognitive, neuroendocrine, immune, and behavioral dimensions. Tools from neuroscience, for example, understanding the brain circuits of the sleep pain and physiology of immune system regulation are essential. Um, Reciprocity and vicious loops. Clinicians and researchers must recognize the vicious cycle potential for sleep, immune dysregulation, pain, worse sleep. This is a vicious cycle, or breaking any link in this chain, like sleep improvement, immune modulation, and pain relief, may have cascading positive effect. Research consideration, longitudinal research from the sensitive period of intervention, and especially as well as among pregnant women, is needed to map how sleep deprivation, fragmentation affects immune markers and pain sensitivity over time, and how interventions modify these pathways. Therefore, we know that sleep, pain, and homeostasis are tightly connected, but many empirical studies remain in separate silos. So we don't have to study sleep alone, and pain and immune and so on. So they have to be integrated. We have to bring a new structure into the clinics from molecular and cellular level. Pain, sleep, and immune function form a tightly interconnected triad of brain-body regulation. And I say brain, mind, body regulation, because what you thought, what you feel, what's emotions, or all of that, what do you perceive? Perception is so critical, and what you pay attention to is important as well. So we see that the structure and behavioral neuroscience framework allows us to see how neural circuits for brain and sleep regulation, homeostatic mechanisms, behavioral responses, and immune systems overlap. Empirical research underscores that sleep disturbances alter immune function and increase pain sensitivity. Immune activation influences pain and sleep, and pain itself disrupts sleep and dysregulates immune systems. Recognizing this tridirectional interplay has profound implications for understanding chronic pain, promoting resilience, and designing integrated interventions and address sleep, immunity, and pain together rather than in isolation. So we have as I stated before, like the one of the biomarkers, interleukin one beta, inflammatory cytokines increase during immune activation. It sensitizes nociceptive pathways, contributes to hyperglycemia. So like promotes non-REM sleep, disrupt REM sleep if elevated. So it has the pro-inflammatory markers really disrupt the sleep cycle and the immune function. So pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 1 beta, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin 6 increase pain sensitivity and fragmented sleep. Anti-inflammatory cytokines interleukin 10 reduce pain, support sleep continuity. Sleep loss decreases endogenous pain inhibition, like BEG and preaqueductal gray and prefrontal cortex increases stress hormones, amplifies pain. Chronic pain worsens sleep, dysregulates immunity, and reinforces pain, the vicious cycle loop. Sleep restoration, especially deep non-REM sleep, can rebalance the cytokines, improve pain threshold, and restore homeostasis. So as we said that it's like the zombies having a party. So the alteration of the metabolic function and consequently on the quality of life, well-being, health span, and the level of productivity or you're showing up in the world. So understanding this mechanism is one of the change health culture perspective within on an individual and in a community level. So how can we become, we say, how to detect changes in the environment, or why detecting changes in the environment matters or so important, because it alters your prior perception, your visual cortex activation, your sympathetic and parasympathetic, and that altering the metabolic function and the consumption of the brain energy and its impact on health and disease. So if we see like we have predictive coding theories. First, in 2010, the brain is fundamentally a change detector. It constantly compares incoming sensory input to internal predictions and update accordingly. Training this system improves the sensory precision, like better perception, attentional control, cognitive flexibility, essential for decision making, adaptation to novelty and threat. Reduction in allostatic load. Failure to efficiently detect and integrate environmental changes is linked to anxiety, chronic stress, poor focus, and increased susceptibility to chronic pain. Some of the strategies is mindful attention. So this is training and sensory awareness. That is from early age. We say from 0 to 3, and then from we have 3 to 7, because 7 is the identity age when perceptual experiences play a critical role in shaping and modeling. And conditioning. What it does is strengthens the ability to focus on the present moment and detect changes in sound, light, temperature, and social cues. The neuro impact increases activation in the anterior cingulate cortex, attention regulation, insula interoceptions, and the meditative state, and the alignment, the prefrontal cortex, executive control, that is focus, attention, emotional regulation, the break. Practical tools, the sensory matching games, like find five things that change in the room. So attention to the environment has to be from 3 years old till the end of the adolescence, because of the pruning and the neurodevelopmental sensitive stages, as everything is changing with hormonal and then other physiological mechanisms are taking place. So it confuses the cell, it's overwhelmed, overworked, but we would like to maintain this state of mindful attention. Mindful attention means you are not hyper vigilant or impulsive, that you see threat in everything, that what you pay attention to, and you are saying, I am inviting more focus, or I am inviting more reflection on that, or it stopped here, because it's not going to serve a positive influence on my neurobiology or on my metabolic function. So you have to make this mindful attention of decision making, what to allow, what's not. So have say mindful listening of movement practice. Somatosensory cortex is especially with trauma. So movement is so important to break down this entrapment. We call it entrapment on the molecular level of emotions. Entrapment. Once it is released and solved and understood, the body start to bring a state of relax in the parasympathetic response. So body scans awareness with body scans. This you can do by you can. The body scan is from the bottom of the feet till the tip of the head, and you notice the tension. What tension has been brought to your attention at the in this body scanning exercise? Awareness to internal changes, because it's going to tell you, and I said it in video before, what are points that trauma is stored in the whole body, and what does it indicate, and how can we understand it from the body scan that this is trauma, and it is related with a specific traumatic event or unpleasant discomfort events happened, but it is trapped in a specific area in your body. So it is so important to say, and has a direct link with to pain. Enhanced interoception improves the top-down modulation of pain signaling, reduces somatic amplification or the limbic or autonomic response. So for cognitive flexibility training, adaptive quickly to new roles, shifts in environment and expectations, needs training. Everything, the brain needs to be it's a muscle, it has to be trained, trained over and over and over for what if scenarios. Like opposite days, opposite days, opposite exits, the opposites, training for opposites. So that means that the brain has been acting from a comfort state for what is familiar. No, there is a shift in the environment. So you bring alertness, you bring awareness, you bring attention, you bring focus, and this was integrating with the emotion. But however, you have to understand what emotion has been triggered at this time, and how is it a negative or positive, and how to work with that from here. Switching the tasks based on changing roles, the near impact, it changes the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex with the visual, and improves working memory and inventory control. Long-term benefits, it trains the brain to regulate emotions responses to unexpected pain or discomfort. Chronic pain connection, poor cognitive flexibility correlates with higher pain catastrophizing and rigidity in pain response behavior. Biofeedback and interoception awareness, that is in later childhood, and here from the identity started to, and they started to look at the modeling started for adults, what they want to be look like and what they want, and then the conditioning and the identity thing. So we have to understand whatever is the child is being conditioned to, they're gonna take it at their identity. So they are developing multiple identities over time for survival, but we want to to grow identity into living, not survival. We don't want them act from survival mode long time, because this will inhibit and this will have its negative effects. What it does, it teaches the children to monitor internal signals, the heartbeat, because this is with the vital signs of our heart rate variability and breathing, and this its impact on the sympathetic response and parasympathetic, and they connect them to emotions and decisions. So we have to acknowledge, notice, acknowledge, validate. But if it is triggering um, this cognitive neurocognitive exercise is triggering negative emotions, uh, don't leave them unresolved and swipe it under the rug. You have to address it in a proactive way, in a way that I am in a participatory approach, that you want the positive outcomes of this experiencing this emotion, not dwelling into it and bringing the negative feedback or the negative emotions into dwelling in activating of the default need network and the reticular formation with rumination, and increase chronic stress and pain. So, poor interoceptive awareness leads to dysregulation of pain and threshold and misinterpretation of body signaling. So, perceptual experiences, and that what I stress on. What perceptual experiences are we integrating in children's life? What perceptual experiences? Pay attention. The giant hasn't been grown up from void. There are perceptual experiences has been ingrained and entrenched into their central nervous system. Sharper sensory discrimination, more accurate threat assessment, focus on attention, greater sustained attention, less distractibility, decision making, improved cost benefit assessment, reduced impulsivity under stress, allostatic load, reduced baseline stress hormones, and better return to baseline after challenge, excitotoxicity risk, lower glutamate driven damage due to better regulation of neural firing under stress, chronic pain vulnerability, improved pain modulation, less somatosensory amplification, better coping. For the allostatic load, the cumulative wear and tear, I said the nitric oxide can, with the heightened chronic pain and stress, it increased the cumulative wear and tear and the disruption of the cartilage and the joint pain, and then you see this chronic inflammation leading into the nitric oxide for increased wear and tear in joints. So on the body, repeated chronic stress, high allostatic load in childhood due to the adverse childhood experiences lead to overactivation of hypothalamic pituitary axis, elevated cortisol and neuroepinephrine, sensitized pain pathways like amygdala and spinal cord. That's correlated with the inflammatory cytokines, and as well the B cells and natural killers in this immune response. So early training reduces reactivity to changes, teaches flexible, safe interpretation of novelty, lower stress hormone levels. Excitotoxicity refers to neural damage from excessive glutamate and calcium influx, linked to chronic stress, sleep loss, and inflammation, all exacerbated by poor change regulation. In chronic pain, excitatory neurotransmission is overreactive, leading to central sensitization, hyperaglasia, allodynia, and cognitive fatigue. So early control of sensory inputs, stress management, and say stress reduction and rest reduces chronic glutamatergic overload and neuroprotection. So neuroplasticity window, why we would like to start from early age, from 0 to 12, a critical period for shaping sensory systems, attention networks, and emotional regulation. Prefrontal cortex and amygdala and hippocampus triad is particularly plastic and sensitive to training during this time. Early environmental stability, novelty detection fosters the resilience circuits that modulates pain later in life. So, for neuroprotection, as the outcome is reduced the excitotoxicity, inflammation, and neural aging. For this video, that's as we say, is everything is correlated, interconnected. Everything is you have a complex multi-systemic biological, neurobiological, neuroendocrinological biosystems that truly is so sensitive to micro changes in your environment, in your thought, in your feelings, in your emotions, especially driven by emotions. Emotions has, I say the highly expensive influence on human condition. Highly expensive influence in human condition. So don't underestimate emotions. They last. They don't go away. So unless you train that it's adaptive emotion, or it's an natural response for a trigger or a stimuli, and whether it's an environmental, external, or internal stimuli. However, what is my perception about it, and how I would like to shift it, to shift my experience and to shift the outcomes as well from early age, and how to build this partnership between, from individual to family to the natural conversation between practitioners and individuals, and between that is the common language I'd like to understand right now, the perceptual experience, its effect on my metabolic function and my brain body, my brain mind body connection, and overall the quality of life and well-being and health span. So we are looking for that is what is it for the well-being of, from holistic way into individuals. This is the first video on Bean Matrix. I don't know what is next. I'm committed for this as a contribution to the public. So a knowledge has been not spread. It's useless. So it has to be shared. Knowledge has to be shared, and you will not. Feel like sad or frustrated or depressed from sharing a useful knowledge, to bring awareness, to bring uh, insights into the human condition from a different perspective and from different lens. And I hope you will utilize this conversation for a little by little to bring to bring a better perspective on life and choices and decisions and who you are. You are his creation, you're God's creation, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are made in God's image. We You are your value in God's eyes, your value in God's eyes. So so you have to understand that, and I wish you well and peace.